Yeah, and that's a good segue into discussion we can have about pool heaters. What are our options there when it comes to pool heaters?
Well, you have gas, natural gas, propane, depending on where you live, and then you have heat pumps, and you have solar heaters. Solar heaters, a lot of people will say, well, we want to do a solar heater. A solar heater is about as expensive as a heat pump. For a good solar heating unit, you're going to spend $5,000 to $8,000. You got to have the roof space. We had a couple that wanted a heater. They wanted a solar heater. They wanted to put it on their guest house, but there wasn't enough roof space on the guest house to accommodate heating that pool facing the sun. So that's your second obstacle. So solar heaters are not applicable in every instance. You do have to have the space. I wouldn't put one on my house because I live on a lake and I fish on that lake. And I know what my house looks like from the lake, and the last thing I want to see is all these panels all over my roof.
Yeah, there's a lot of area to those panels. They cover a lot of space.
It's a lot, and I don't want to see that. It doesn't have to go on the roof, but again, it's still a lot of space. Then you have the gas heater, whether it's propane or natural gas, and I can tell you that for a weekend, you warm your pool. And here's the advantages of gas heat. Quick. You can be swimming in a matter of hours. You kick that thing on and you can get in that pool pretty fast. Same day. You'll get that temperature up. And it could be January and 10 degrees outside and you can melt some ice. You can get that pool heated up and jump in it like a hot tub. You can bring it up to 104 degrees if you want. But that's if you have a tank big enough. Because you'll go through about $1,000 worth of propane.
You're not exaggerating there either.
No, there's a reason that gas companies won't install a free propane tank on a house with a pool, but they will for your house. But they won't give you a free one for the pool because they know you're not going to use it.
That's true.
They know you're going to get your first bill, you're going to freak out, and then you're going to say, I'm not doing that anymore.
So I've seen those gas bills with my own eyes. I know it can be very expensive.
Well, we had a customer that he knew, because it's half the price on the initial outlay of cost, and he was like, I'm not spending $5,500 on a heat pump, and I got extra electrical. I'm just not doing that. I can get the gas heater for, at that time it was $2,500, and so that's what he got, and he used it not even a whole season. Then he sold it on Craigslist, and we went out and put a heat pump in.
So what can somebody expect to spend in a month, would you say, with propane or natural gas on average?
Depending on how much you use it. So if you use it the way you want to use it, for a month, over $1,000. If you use it the way you want to use it. Chances are what you're going to do is you're going to heat the pool up for the weekend and then shut it off. Because that's the sensible thing to do. And then enjoy the pool for your pool party for the weekend and then not use it for the rest of the week.
And somebody could expect to see $400 to $600 probably for operating the pool that way for a month.
Operating it that way, you can expect $400 to $600 on gas. And then if you go with the heat pump, and again, this comes into play with the models of heat pumps you use. You get too small a heat pump, you're gonna have a huge bill. You get the right size heat pump, it keeps the cost down. So this comes into play of you having the right company selling the right products. But with a heat pump, you turn it on, you set your temperature of what you want the pool to be, and it'll maintain that temperature. So when it gets up to 85 degrees, it shuts off.
Just like a house thermostat.
Just like a house thermostat. And if you want to do a heat and cool, a little more expensive, then you can set it at 85, and when it gets up to where it's trying to get to 90, it'll reverse it and come back down to 85.
So there's heat pumps. There's heat pumps that will actually cool the water.
That will actually cool the water. And a lot of people, what they don't understand is the heat pump that cools the water is not the cost of the heat pump. It doesn't cost that much more to go up to that grade, but you use some really heavy wire. And it's the wiring that jumps the price up. So it's about $1,000 more than the heat only because of the wiring. You go from a number 10 wire, which is a little small wire because you can't really see that well on the camera, to this big old hot tub type of wiring, number 6 wire, to carry that load. So my experience with the heat pump, I was excited last year. It was really cold last year. March and April were miserable. It rained almost every day, it seemed, in April. I think temperature ever got above 50. Not a good time to run your heat pump, I can tell you from personal experience.
Right.
So my bill was about $400 for the month. And we swam every day. So, you know, if it had been gas, it would have probably been a couple thousand. My tank would have ran out. But I learned from that, okay, when it's 50 degrees outside for the whole month, it's not even getting out of the 50s during the day, just don't turn it on, you know. And when it got up to 93, my wife was like, can you please cool the water down because it's just getting too hot. And I still had that taste in my mouth from April, that bill, and I said when it hits 95 I'll cut it back to 90. But we're gonna wait a couple more degrees, and it never did get up to the 95. So but it can get up past 95 though.
So I know we talk a lot, we've talked about 4 types of heaters, and the 2 predominant ones out there are the propane or natural gas heater and then the heat pump. And I know that we get asked a lot, you know, specifically, what are the differences between the regular propane natural gas heater and a heat pump? And I know that we always tell folks, and you touched on this a lot, but a regular propane heater, natural gas heater, has a high heat rise or a fast heat rise, so it'll raise the pool temperature really fast, and it'll raise the temperature of the pool in any climate. So it can be January, like you said, and it'll still heat the water. So those are the 2 main advantages there, and also it's a little bit less initially. So right now we sell natural gas or propane heaters for $3,500, somewhere around $3,500,
that's correct.
All right. The disadvantage then is the cost to run it. You know, the amount of fuel that it'll burn. You're going to you can plan on spending $400 to $600 a month. You could spend as much as $1,000. Could easily spend over $1,000. And when it comes to a heat pump,
and you can't cool.
And you can't cool. That's right. And with a heat pump, we have the main advantage is efficient, right? It's probably about 80% more efficient, 75 to 80% more efficient. The disadvantage is that, you know, it needs to be the right climate outside to operate. You know, it won't work at all if it's under about, you know, 45 degrees, and if it's running at around 50 for a month, like you said, it's going to be more expensive.
Very much so.
And it doesn't heat the water as fast either. So
you can plan on, when you turn your heat pump on, depending on the water temperature, so if your water temperature is in the 60s, you're probably going to be 2 days before you're going to see the 80s. So it's not like you're just going to turn your heat pump on. I have gotten phone calls, my heat pump's not working. I've had it on for 2 days and the water temperature is 80 degrees. And I got it set on 90. And they don't believe, you know, because it doesn't come, water's not coming out to return. It's not real hot to the field. And they'll say it's barely even warm. And that's the way the heat pumps work. So it might be before we get up to 90 for 65 degree water, it could take 3 days before, but once it's there, it's there. You know, it's
maintains it at a low cost.
And we didn't talk about cost. So your actual cost to operate a heat pump in a normal April, really a normal April, in the eastern seaboard, say from, I would say, North Carolina to New Jersey, even New York, you could expect in April to spend a couple $100s for the month. And then in May, you could expect probably about 150. And then in June, and you're getting into Jersey, New York, you're probably going to still be using it in the beginning of June. But once you get into Upper Maryland would be still June, but then Eastern Maryland and Virginia down, you're probably not going to use it at all in June. But except for July when you go to cool. But anyway, those months you're going to be looking at around $75. So it's less and less, you know, and it does buy you, we can talk about actual extended time. It should get you April, May on the front end, September, October on the back end. Surprisingly enough, folks, October, you can most of the time get the whole month of October in. We actually were swimming in my pool in November this past year with the heat pump.